All of my family, they were collecting records since I can even remember. When I migrated to Panama, the first thing I got here was like only two suitcases, one with my clothes and the other one I had the records in it that I wanted to really hold
Wow.
close to when I came from Venezuela to Panama. For me, the ones that I brought from Venezuela, there were like 50 of them. Even the Dark Side of the Moon, the original
Okay. Yeah.
recording, the first press in Venezuelan edition, and I still have it. I do see it as a very special part of my collection. So in this case, I
Yep.
do not play it, but instead I do play my own remastered record. Those family records are very important, not only because they are probably first presents from that time, but also because they belong to my family, to my uncle, to my mom, to my dad, even my grandparents. So for me, it is amazing to have them and to be able to preserve them for next generation. So, I mean, obviously, when you come to a coming of age and everything with friends and everything, you start to discover music. By my teenage years, I was already discovering music on the internet, like LimeWire artists or downloading music. It was great to actually discover music, but then to actually be able to have it in an analog way, in this case, the vinyl records. The majority of my records are always rock classics and bands that means a lot to me in terms of music and in terms of rock and roll, funk, jazz, because my dad is also a pianist player. I mean, he just plays the piano. So
Right.
there's
Cool.
always a lot of involvement in jazz music in my home. Panama, I started collecting several records, and now my collection is up to 2,000 records. My collection for the 45 records began just recently. I mean, I have been
Yeah.
only 45 records for probably 2 or 3 years when the pandemic started. There was some music that I only wanted to have some specific stuff. And I was
Yep.
like, oh, okay, so probably the 45 format is the greatest for that kind of format. I started with rock and roll records because it's the genre that I enjoy the most, and funk and jazz and disco also because I do love it. Now I have been trade digging a lot into Panamanian music, but more of the Afro-Caribbean Panamanian music, more of the beginning
Nice.
of the Panamanian music in per se. For me, being like the newest member for WAPIN. In this case,
Yep.
they were all men at the beginning, but now I'm here,
Yes.
and I mean it's like for me has been a great opportunity because I do have the chance of mixing also new records that I do have that I normally
Yep.
don't play at home, like Panamanian music or soul music or funk. I do have the opportunity to mix a lot of records that I do have that I consider rarities. For example, Dixieland music that it
Yeah.
was the American people that was based here in Panama during the construction of the canal. It is amazing to actually be able to listen to that music and understand that it does
Yeah.
have like all of the influence from North America, like jazz and Dixieland and Nashville and all of these New Orleans music at that time, but also with instrumentation that is done here in Panama. I am the co-founder of a record label with my husband and another partner. We have been focusing in this case, Panamanian rock that was only invented or was only existing as a digital archive, in this case for artists that are Panamanian like Rabanes, Los
Yeah.
33, Distinto. What we have been doing is that we have been remastering all of these archives in an analog way to be able to put it on records. This has been going on since the pandemic. We have been for 3 years working with already 5 records that we have completely sold out. It was important for us to give a scene to that people that was working during the pandemic because they didn't have like a way of doing concerts or several places. We were like, okay, we need these people to be able to release their music because they have been working on it during these 3 years of the pandemic. That's why we released the compilation album. It has like 15 artists that recorded versions of their songs during the pandemic. We just realized that whenever you do have the time and you do have the capacity or the skills or the
Yeah.
environment to do so, because most of the Panamanian rock bands, just as we ourselves, we work with this, but also we do have our separate jobs. So whenever you're going through the whole day with your corporate job, you don't have enough time to actually release your music and work with your music and everything. Just as you said, it did develop a lot of creativity from these artists. It was amazing the way they put it all together. Like, I'm going to be recording in my house, you record it in your house, and then we put
Yeah.
all of the masters
Yeah.
together. I think whenever an artist comes to this part of their career when they're able to not being in the same room and actually put some work together and make a song, I think it's amazing, and that's why we wanted to establish with this compilation album.